Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Today, we were looking at from Imam al-Haddad's. We continue to read from his works, and that's really what the ulama do in these regular halaqas, is that they just keep reading and reading the works of others, and that's how they learn, and things become, you keep repeating the same concepts over and over. And this concept is one of those it's a very interesting one. The question is, what is a good age and what is a good person? Right? In other words, when we talk about the age today that we live in today, what is the indicator of a good age? And according to Imam al-Haddad, the good age is that in which the people would all agree that there is more good in the public sphere than evil. Okay? There's more good in the public sphere than evil. And of course, goodness being defined and identified as how Allah and His Messenger defined goodness, like what the Sharia says is good. Al-khayru al-hasanu ma hassanahu al-shara' wal-qabihu ma qabbahahu al-shara'. This is a ruling or a wisdom or a little line that a person could rule of thumb. The good is what the Sharia says is good, and the bad is what the Sharia says is bad. Okay, and where the Sharia is silent, then it's the consensus of pious praying Muslims. Okay, and their scholars, of course. Well, this other question is, who is the good person? And the good person is that person where others would expect goodness from them and feel safe from their harm. That's the sign of the mark of a good person, is these two things, is that you would feel safe from their harm. That means if you were vulnerable and your situation was in their hands, you would feel safe. And the opposite, that it's expected that good will happen when this person is around, right? When this person is involved, that good things will happen. It's expected. So that's the definition of the good person. Now the bad person is the opposite. Okay, so when someone says he's good or bad, this is really what we mean. The bad person is the one who is, you expect him to if your situation is in their hands, that they're going to ruin you. Okay, and the opposite is you expect bad from that person. Okay, what are they going to do if they're involved in a situation? You expect them to do something bad. So that's basically the situation of the definition on who is the good and who is the evil type of person. And these are two simple definitions. The Prophet ﷺ said, everybody is together, he says, has a flock. Right? كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you has a flock, and every one of you is responsible for that flock. Your personal charges, and now Imam Haddad says your flock, it does not begin with, let's say, your spouse or kids. He says it begins with your organs, your own 7 organs. And that's your first flock. Your first flock is the responsibilities that Allah gave you. Now note, we in Islam, we don't say that the body's ours. Right? The body is not something that you can own things, but one of the things you cannot own is your body. You can own other things. You can own a tree. You can own an animal. Okay, you can own property, land. You can own a lot of things, but you don't own your own body. And that's why everything regarding the body, for us to do with the body, is forbidden with exceptions. So everything is the default setting is that everything you do with your body is prohibited unless it's made permissible. For example, piercings have been made permissible. As long as it's not tashabbuh or imitation of the opposite gender. Henna has been permissible, right? We have rulings that henna is permissible on the skin. If it's permanent tattoo, then it's not permissible. Certain things that would trick people. So, for example, if you're going to propose to somebody and you wear a wig, for example, and you're a man, you're wearing a toupee, or you're doing something with your hair, you dyed it all black when in fact you have white hair, and you're proposing to a woman, that's called ghish. It's a type of your trickery. Okay, and there have been lawsuits about people who actually have been tricked in marriage. They got married, they didn't realize that they were actually tricked by the person's appearance. So in general, you don't owe, the society does not have to know, for example, that you have a certain defect in yourself. You can cover that. However, once someone's interest is involved, such as marriage, where they're going to live with you, they have to look at you all day, and not only that, you're going to produce children together, so they have an interest in that. You cannot hide that. Okay, so at some point early on in the talks in marriage, you actually have to appear in front of them without any of that. Okay, let's say a man, his hair's going gray, but yet he keeps coloring it, so everyone thinks he's young, right? Or he's old, but he doesn't age the way that everyone else ages. But well, at some point early on in the talks, before they get emotionally attached, he must reveal that. He doesn't have to say it. Here's my white hairs. No, he just has to show up with that. Whether she notices or not, that's on her. But he showed up like that. He didn't trick anybody. It's right there, plainly on his face, etc. Okay, that must be revealed. Now, for the woman, she must reveal anything like that her hijab would cover. So, for example, if a person's got half their entire body's burned, a husband has the right to know that, right? Leave it or not, if someone, forget the question of is it ethical for him to, reject a woman because of an accident. Forget that. That's not the point. The point is, it has to be informed. He doesn't have to see it, but he must be informed, and maybe can be shown a likeness of that. She does not have to reveal that. Okay, and she may reveal it merely to the mother or something else like that, some relative that is a female. But the point is that we don't commit ghish. So any bodily changes that would affect a marriage, where a person would come on the night of the marriage and say, whoa, you never said this, okay? That would be called ghish, and would be something that we have to take into consideration when people get married. If it's something that's minor that a lot of people have, then you don't have to say that, like freckles or whatever in certain parts of your body. That's not something that you would have to say, right? It's something that is abnormal, that, out of 100 people, one person or zero will have this condition or this situation. That's something that you have to reveal, okay, before marriage. So he's saying that your body and your organs are the first flock entrusted to you. And so it's interesting because we get to practice on ourselves before we take on other dependents. So if you abuse your own body and you abuse your own self, and you cannot discipline yourself in your body. So what are your organs? He's not talking about your kidney and your liver. When they say the organs, he means here the tongue, the ears, the eyes, the stomach, the genitals, the hands and the feet. Right? We're not talking about, the kidney and the liver and the appendix. These are things that are out of our control. But what he's talking about is the things that you do have control over. Okay? Your ears, what you listen to. Your tongue, what you speak. Your eyes, what you look at. Your genitals, okay, how you use them. Hands and feet. So if you're not disciplined in these, then you don't know how to have discipline. If you don't know how to have discipline over yourself, how are you going to discipline others? Then when you have a flock, you're going to spoil it. It's going to be ruined. Okay? And that's why this is a ni'mah. And there's the age of murahaqa, and then there's bulugh, and then there's usually a period of time before someone marries. All of that is the training ground for these 7 limbs. Is that murahaqa means that the person is mudrik, that means they understand. So an 8-year-old understands what's going on, right? A 9-year-old understands. So they understand what's going on, but they haven't yet reached puberty. The Sharia we call that, or I should say in the Arabic language, al-murahaqa, murahiq, okay, murahiq, all right? And that type of person is not considered legally responsible, okay? Now, in modern Arabic language, they talk about the murahiq, they extend that into what's called the teenage years. So you have 17, 18, 19 person, they call that murahiq in the Arabic language. But in Sharia, murahiq ends at bulugh. So what is the ruling of the murahiq? Murahiq is not liable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but once they hit bulugh, they're responsible. Okay? So the period of murahaqa is a period to learn discipline. Because once bulugh hits, now Allah is going to write down the angels are writing down your deeds, and you're responsible in the sight of Allah Ta'ala. So you have to watch your tongue. So the age of the murahiq, that age from Usually, let's say 7 to 14, hypothetically, because that's the age that Sayyidina Ali gave. Sayyidina Ali gave the age of 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21. He said these are the three phases of the person's life. Ala al-ghalib, meaning in most cases. 0 to 7 is a time where you play with them and you develop relationship with them. That's the dominant action that you do in the relationship. 7 to 14, the dominant action is teaching them akhlaq and adab. 14 to 21 is musahaba, means they start to look at adult life. They start to act like adults. They try to help you in your job, learn your trade, etc. Of course, in the time of Sayyidina Ali, the society was less complicated, less complex, and there was less to do. So by 14, khalas, you can join your dad and go with your hunting with him and bricklaying with him or whatever, or you did. And then at 21, if you did all these phases well, at 21 you could let them go, right? He says, وَاتْرُكُ الْحَبْلَ عَلَى الْغَالِبِ, meaning you could leave their rope go. You don't have to worry about them. They could swing by and say, you treat each other almost like peers at this point, even though of course you're always the father, but you're at the similar level at that point. And he said, that's most cases. Now we in our complex modern world, we might fudge these numbers a little bit, move them here and back and forth. But the idea is the same. The idea is that period of al-murahaqa, which is from idrak, 7, when they start to understand, up till bulugh, is the period of time where they start practicing these things. Okay, discipline. So that when life starts throwing them the tests of life, at that point, they have a concept of fear of Allah. All right. Well, I know that when I've done something wrong, I had to apologize. So that's like tawbah. I've learned tawbah. My soul is accustomed to humbling itself. Okay. Ta'deeb, when a person has to, let's say, apologize to an elder, that's a little metaphor for tawbah. If you're accustomed to doing that with an elder, you easily do that with Allah, right? So because it's a custom of the heart or a habit of the heart. Likewise, someone who worships Allah and humbles himself in ibadah to Allah and seeks dua, your heart got used to humility. So when you deal with another human being, you'll be humble, right? Because it's the same thing. So whether or not, like if you remember, in movies, wax on, wax off, he's learning how to paint wash the fence. I don't know if you're from the 80s, you remember this. He's learned how to paint the fence, right? So wax on, wax off. But then when he learns karate, he uses the same motion. It doesn't matter whether you're painting or whether you're playing karate. It's the same motion, right? And that's what he was teaching him, the motion of something, right? And so where it's applied doesn't make a difference. So likewise, if someone is humble in ibadah, they'll be humble with people. If someone is polite to their elders, they should easily make tawbah to Allah. They should have no problem with the concept that there's someone above me, I owe them respect. Okay. Likewise, now you have a God, you understand that concept, it's the same concept. You're just applying it somewhere else. So this is the sense of the tarbiyah of the murahiqeen, those who are in that pre-pubescent age. But the sharia, now you have to understand, doesn't have this age of 18, except for those who do not receive bulugh because of a medical situation. The sharia gives the age of 18. I think the Hanafi madhab gives the age of 15. Okay, the Maliki madhab gives the age of 18. But that's an exception. 99% of people reach puberty, right? More. And so, but once they reach puberty, at that point, many of the ulama, they used to, in Tarim, I know this is the Hadramaut, this is what they used to do. They used to take a couple boys so that they don't, nobody feels singled out. And let's say a couple boys reach puberty in the past, period of time. And they'll take those boys, and the men will come in a room, and the mashayikh will come, and they will give speeches. And the youth who are maybe a couple years older will also give speeches. And then the shuyukh will speak about Jannah and Jahannam. They will speak about responsibilities. They'll describe, the rewards of good deeds and the punishments of bad deeds in this life and then in the next. They'll tell stories about those who went astray and what happened to them, and tell stories of those who were good and what happened to them. It was a whole, it wasn't a ceremony it's a party or something. It was quite serious. And then they finish it with a long dua for these youth who have now entered into from murahaqa to puberty, right? Maybe we ought to revive this tradition, okay? Maybe we ought to revive this tradition. And again, it's done in a general way, not like, yesterday he reached bulugh. That's embarrassing, right? You don't want to talk about that. But in general, every year there are a couple kids who are in that age group and they all attend. And those who haven't yet reached puberty, they attend as well because they get to watch, they get to listen, they get to know, oh my gosh, that's going to be me maybe next year, right? Maybe the year after. So maybe we ought to actually every once in a while, we ought to have one of these gatherings for the youth, right? That this is what you've come upon. You now have an extra member in your little life, and that is the angel on the left. He wasn't writing before. His book was closed. Maybe that whole area is vacant. But the moment that bodily fluid comes out of you is the sign that you have hit bulugh, boy or girl, and you come down, and the angel comes down and now begins to write your deeds. So you should have fresh on your mind the awareness of Allah Ta'ala, the importance of obeying God, the descriptions of the paradise that now awaits you, and the heaven that now awaits. Because you remember now, kids who die before bulugh, they don't have the same paradise. Okay, some ulama have said they are the servants of paradise. They didn't do anything to earn it, right? They're the servants of paradise, and Allah knows best their state, right? And Allah is most generous, and we should have a good opinion of Allah Ta'ala. But now you can earn it, right? And now, by the same token, you can earn the opposite. Okay, so it's to be aware of these limbs of yours, that you are your first flock that you're responsible for are these hands, these feet, this tongue from telling lies, the eyes from looking at what's haram, the ears from listening to what's haram, spying maybe on other people, and everything else. So this is the first flock, and this is where, what is a disciplined society, a good disciplined society? It's one where this is the normal teaching taught to everybody. Right? This is not just a small sliver of a religious group that does this. Everyone is taught, okay, these basic akhlaq and disciplines. Then you will have a disciplined society, a society of order, a society of sanity. Whereas the opposite, right? If only a sliver does this and everyone else does the opposite, obeys their shahwat. The Prophet ﷺ said there comes a time where desires are obeyed. Okay? Desires are just obeyed. You indulge in desires. Okay? Nobody should question your following of desires. He said such a society, at the end of that hadith, is such a society where you need to just close the door and not talk to anybody. Right? ظهر الرويبضة, people that argue on no basis, right? No reason, no rationality. It's just emotions. And so therefore, such a society, you can't even talk. You just leave it, right? You don't even talk. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ said. And what the precursor of that type of society is that desires are obeyed. No sense of discipline. And so, let's see how we're doing here. We do have some comments from people. Okay. And, we usually keep these little mini community updates short. And so I think we can stop here because he now moves on to the other flock, and which is your first flock being, if it's a man, it's his wife, that he's now not responsible for her, but he is in the sense that her sins are her sins and her good deeds are her good deeds, but he is responsible for reminding them, for ensuring that the remembrance of Allah, the salah, the zakah, the som is established in the house. The hudud of Allah are established. The hudud meaning the limits of the sharia are established, etc. And then children become the flock of the father mainly, but the mother in the absence of the father. In other words, if the father is working, then the kids become his flock. Employees are a flock. Okay? And if you own a business, if you're the amir, the people become your flock, right? If you're the amir, your town becomes like your flock. Okay, and so on and so forth. And some people will have a small flock, some people have a big flock. Now, the big flock, people love to be in charge, right? The human being loves power. But a big flock, Prophet ﷺ described it as hasra yawm al-qiyamah. Power equals having a big flock. It's a hasra. It's something that you will just be upset about, right? On yawm al-qiyamah. It'll be something you put your head in your hands and you just regret ever having been in charge, right? And you wish that you were like one of the people who were not in charge. They asked Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq about the Khilafah, and he said, I wish that I was merely a hair on the arm of a believer because of the great size of the responsibility. And in fact, if a Muslim sees that his responsibility is big and his errors are grave, this is actually a sign of tawfiq. All right? So if you have a flock and you view your own, that this responsibility is so big it's giving you like a headache and it's keeping you up at night, and when you do make a mistake that you feel like a mountain has fallen on your head, these are all excellent signs that a Muslim is on the right track and that Allah Ta'ala will accept from him and forgive him. And the opposite, someone has a big responsibility, he takes it lightly. When he makes a mistake therein, he also takes that lightly. That's not a good sign. That's a very bad sign. Okay? So that's Imam al-Haddad's first speech and discussion on the concept of the flock. وَكُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you has a flock, and every one of you is disappointed. Every one of you is responsible for his flock. All right, with that, let us now turn to the chat, live chat. Okay. And let's, in terms of community updates, of course, the kids' campus keeps going on. I love kids' camp. Unfortunately, now it's only on the internet, but still, it's nice. Wednesday, there is guys' night. Of course, socially distanced guys' night, because the brothers, they weren't seeing each other anymore. And it's been like months now. And even Jum'ah, it's just like from far away. So they will have some sandwiches there, and they will, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, be sitting far apart from each other, but we're able to talk, right? And if you're up for that, it's at 7:30, I think we said. We'll check the email. 7:30 at Community Park in North Brunswick. Please make sure you observe all the coronavirus. We're not out of coronavirus. We just got bored of it. That's really what happened, right? But that's not an excuse. We have to make sure that we are responsible for our actions, especially a masjid-sponsored program, and that nobody goes home to their families, coughing, and next day the whole house has the coronavirus. All right, let's take a look. Harris Amin, and AA, and Aziza Zatar, Sharif Marzouk. Wa alaikum salam to everybody. All right, AA says, if a woman was told by a doctor you won't be able to have children, she definitely has to reveal that, of course. She definitely has to disclose. It's disclosure. You have to disclose that. Can you sell a car that cannot receive gas? So everything's perfect. There's a big hole in the gas tank, so you can't drive away with it. Of course not. Right? So she must disclose that before getting married. Yep. And by the way, in terms of actually how these things happen, you don't have to, send them a text, say, hey, I don't have kids, or you can have your wali inform him. Your wali, your parent informs their parent. That's enough, right? It doesn't have to be like directly face to face. Another question, some people used to get married at age 9. Others get married 30 and 40. They're not married. Well, simple answer is that the more complex the society is, the later the marriage date. Because there's so many responsibilities that need to be learned, right, before getting married. In the Bedouin, they all get married early. All of them marry early, right? Because first of all, they may have reached puberty earlier. Their body matures earlier. That might be one reason. But secondly, like, what is the, in a sense, what are the responsibilities of life? If you're a shepherd, and your dad was a shepherd, and your grandfather was a shepherd, and your father-in-law is a shepherd, and that's all you do, there's no responsibilities of life that need to be learned past the age of 12, 13. Amr ibn al-As, the difference in age between him and his son, the famous companion Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, father and son, age difference 12 years, the age difference between father and son. Humayra says, I find it more difficult to help my own family members than helping friend, community member, stranger. Is there something from the Sunnah to help with this? Well, you have to think of the reward, and that the true, the Prophet ﷺ spoke about people when they die. And he said, the first person that can testify to you is the closest one to you. If they testify for your goodness, right, like husband to the wife, father to the daughter, right, wife to the husband, okay, the close relationships, the weightier it is in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that the distant relations, such as friends and community members, will never outweigh the family. So if you're all members of your family, they're split on you 50-50, and yet all the people love you, that might not outweigh the 50-50, because that's where the real test is. And of course, we all want to go out and be with our friends. It's easier to help your friends because you chose them, right? You can say goodbye when you want to. So it's not much of a test. The real test is if your family likes you, if they tolerate you, if they have anything good to say about you. That's very hard to earn, okay, from one's family, because it's not your choosing. That's the test Allah chose for you. And the test Allah chose for you is more weighty than the test that you put up for yourself. If you had a student, and that math student said, there are two tests. I made myself a test, and I passed it. And he presents it to the teacher, right? And then he presents the test that the teacher gave him. Which one is the teacher going to care about? The test that you created for yourself is not an issue. Of course you're going to pass that. You've created a situation that's so easy for you, right? You helped the people that you wanted to help. You spent time with the people you want to spend time with. So that's not the test. The test is whom Allah Ta'ala has put in your life. That's the real test. And if you pass that test and you fail every other test, then most likely this will outweigh it. Okay? The one who is good to that their family says everything good about them, but the people don't have anything to say about them, right? It outweighs it. It definitely outweighs it, as long as there's no grievous oppression on the other side. What are the signs of a mu'min? The signs of a mu'min? Much love of entering the masjid and going to the masjid. Much remembrance of Allah. Observing wudu is one of the signs of a mu'min, right? These are that he doesn't lie. That's a sign of a mu'min. So it's the opposite of the signs of the hypocrites. So if we can look at those, these are all signs of mu'mineen. Opposite sign of the hypocrites. Prophet ﷺ said, the mu'min is in the masjid is like a fish inside of water. And the Prophet ﷺ talked also about someone who guards his wudu, cares about wudu. Why? Because wudu is something that's only between you and Allah. Nobody else sees it. Nobody else knows if you have wudu or not. Most of the time you could lie. So not lying and being honest about wudu to yourself and between you and Allah is one of the interactions between us and Allah every day. Is there a difference on a man looking at an unbelieving lady, kaniz, fasiqa, and muslima? Yes, it's more grave that he looks upon a muslima, but all of it's sinful. Whether he looks at a kafira or a muslima is all sinful, but to look at a Muslim is worse. Okay? Because any aggression of rights upon a Muslim is heavier in the sight of Allah, because those are the people of Allah. The Muslim, the relation of a Muslim to Allah Ta'ala is not the same as the relation of a non-believer to Allah. One submitted to him and one didn't, right? Even if he didn't, actively reject submission, but he's not in a state of submission, and one is in a state of submission. Okay. So the concern for the rights of a Muslim take priority, but the rights of everyone are obligatory. If one does not live in a large Muslim community, or one is having difficulty meeting Muslims of the same age, how does one maintain shyness while looking for a spouse? Very tough question, but I would say being involved with any community group, even if it's a group of women. So those women have nephews, they have sons, they have brothers, okay? And that's the connection. So I would say that the way to do this is to be as involved as possible in the community groups, right? And so hopefully from that, people will say, oh, I have a nephew, or I have a grandson, or I have a son, or I have a brother, okay? And hopefully those types of people who love to matchmake can do something. That's the value of being in a... Now, she says here, it's a large Muslim community, right? Well, maybe at that point, try to find a smaller one, okay? If it's too big that nobody really knows everyone, where you want to go is you want to go to the community that is small enough for that everyone knows everybody and everyone, watches out for everyone else. If you can find such a community, that's better. Okay, what else we got here? All right, we'll see if there's one more question, and then we'll wrap up for the evening. Homer says, I think they mean there was slim pickings. Yes, so that's a tough situation, honestly. I wish I had a solution for you, and it's frustrating, but I wish I had a solution, but I actually don't. Unfortunately, you're better off trying, this brother Baba Ali, he's a Persian, I think he was, and he became a Muslim. He was a Persian Zoroastrian. He became a Muslim. He has a nice, what I looked at the website, and I found it like they're pious Muslims. It's not like a Tinder or whatever these websites are, these apps. This guy has, what's the website called? It's like a marriage app. Just look at Alibaba, and they have these online events, sometimes in-person events. But what I notice is that he really has a concern for people who are trying to have taqwa, and they try to do things in the right way. Maybe you could make use of these. Only 5 years ago, everyone was shunning these online applications. As time goes on, it might actually be useful. Let me look at it right now and give you a little. This is not an MBIC sponsored operation. This is nothing related to MBIC or even me. I'm just looking at it and I'm not advising this. I'm just saying maybe. All right, it's called halfourdeen.com. Now everyone's going to go there and not be listening to what I'm saying. But anyway, you can check this out if you're interested in it. And it's from what I've heard, it's for very serious people. And he makes you pay for it, which might be a good thing that he makes you pay for it. And then he has a video that you could watch that he explains how it works and everything. Okay, but you can tell from everything the way he tries to do with the website, he's trying to follow Sharia as best as possible. Okay, and it's trusted by all these Islamic organizations. Okay, that you can say that care about the Sharia and that would not put their label with some floozy type of thing. Okay, you might want to give it a shot. Okay, you never know what's going to happen. And again, this is not my recommendation. I'm just saying you may want to give it a shot. The other organizations have recommended it, such as Al-Maghrib Institute, ISNA. Well, ISNA, I mean MAS, Al-Maghrib Institute, Yasmin. What is this? Okay, Yasmin Muhsin. Different organizations have sponsored it, so you can contact them and say, hey, you sponsored it. What was the basis of that? Okay. All right, let's take a look at Hausa Films TV from Nigeria. The Hausa, of course, is one of the 5 major tribes of Nigeria. You have the Hausa, the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Fulani, and the... Who's the 5th one? Hausa Films, who's the 5th one? Okay. He says, may I ask what Iman Wire is? Iman Wire is a blog by Al Medina Institute, right? Which some good brothers there who've done a lot of hard work, and that's what Iman Wire is. It's a blog that is founded by our friend and brother Mu'tasim Atiyah and his friends and his family, that they put this together, and it's part of Al Medina Institute. If I'm not mistaken, I think that I haven't looked at it in a long time, but Iman Wire is their blog, if I'm not mistaken. It's the Al Medina Institute blog. Okay, so you can learn some different. You can read different topics on there, spirituality. Again, we're not sponsoring it. But we do have good relations with, alhamdulillah, all of the Muslims and Ahl Sunnah. Mawadda Matrimony from Hausa Films, he says, is another one. Then he said he found his wife there. So there you have a live testimonial right there. Hausa Films found his wife on Mawadda Matrimony. Okay, and here's the thing. Whenever you go there, if you find people, you want to look for the organization that is trying to really observe the limits of Allah Ta'ala as much as possible. You want to see signs of that, because that's the website that's going to attract people like that, right? And they probably will be turned off from people who are not like that. They will be turned off from such a website. There's, these people are too strict, they're too conservative, they're too whatever, I don't want to be involved in that. That's, for you, that's a good sign, right? And you want that, because it's going to attract people who are good, or trying to be good. We're all trying to be good. Can't say we're good. We're trying to be good. All right, Hausa Films TV. I mean, you're from Nigeria. What's the 5th tribe? It's the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Hausa, the Fulani, and the who? Hamza Hussein has a question. Is unconditional love something that's obligated on the parents of a child? No, it's not at all. Not at all. It's conditional. And the condition is you are believing in Allah and His Messenger and submitting to Allah and His Messenger, and you're not a rebel against God and His Prophet. Once you rebel against God and His Prophet out in the open, or you leave Islam completely, wal-a'yadhu billah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, from that, then ma salama. Thanks for stopping by. Nice knowing you. Goodbye. Okay, easier said than done, of course, but I think that Allah will strengthen the hearts of people, because we have in the Quran, لا تجد قوما يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر يودون من حد الله ورسوله. You will never find someone who believes in God on His last day have love for somebody who wages open war on God and His Messenger, even if it's their fathers and their sons. So it's not unconditional, it's conditional. The love of Allah itself is conditional. For Allah to love His creation with conditions. Does Allah just love anybody? No. He loves a mu'min after that person has put in effort in worship, until, for example, it says that he does his obligations, then he continues to do good deeds, hatta yuhibba, until I love him. Then I love him. All right, then I love him, after he's put effort in worshiping me. So Allah Himself has conditions. Those are the conditions. Hausa Film says it's the Kanuri, I think. Yeah, maybe. That's just not one of the more popular ones, but I think I guess that's what it is. I thought maybe it's the Mandinka, maybe. Yeah, Kanuri. So the beautiful area of West Africa that one day I hope to go to, Ghana, and see beautiful West Africa. All right. Jazakumullahu khairan, everyone. We will stop here, and have a good night, and have a good week. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslima. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.